So these are the research questions that I had. The first research question was how to develop quantitative measures to assess business recovery using large-scale cell phone location-based human mobility data. And question two, how did the spatial and temporal dynamics of business recovery vary across business types? For example, restaurants, grocery stores, health and personal cares, etc., following Winter Storm Uri. And how were business recovery disparities associated with factors like power outages, snow depth, temperature, socioeconomic settings, etc. So this is the study area. So the study area considered for this study was Houston Metropolitan Statistical Area. So if you look at the map on the left side, so we choose this study area because this was like heavily affected by power outages. So the map on the left, the black dots are represents the complete outage. So that is why we took this study area for our reference case. And these are the data sets that we used. So so if you look at the broader categories, so we use recovery matrices, which is like disruption index and maximum drop index. So these indices were calculated from the data that we got from SafeGraph, which was the location data from cell phones, and we had business attributes like business type, business size, and for disaster stressors, we considered power outage, temperature, snowfall depth, and for economic characteristics, we had data for median household income, ratio of people below the poverty line, and for demographic characteristics, we had data like population density, ratio of people enrolled in school, urban population, ratio of non-white people, ratio of people over age 65, ratio of families living alone. So these were then we had also the housing characteristics of the communities. So ratio of families living alone, ratio of vacant households, ratio of renter occupied households, ratio of households without vehicles. So these are the list of data that we had, and also we had SafeGraph PY data for the year 2021, and we collected near to 40K POIs, and which were divided into top categories of businesses, 19 top categories, and 47 subcategories. For easier analysis, we then reclassified these categories into 9 broader categories, which is like food and beverage services, supermarkets, grocery stores, retail stores, health and personal care, automotive sales services, specialty food and beverage retails, leisure, hobby, entertainment, home, lifestyle, and florist gifts. So these are basically the major categories, which could be again classified as 2 broader categories, which is like essential services and non-essential services. And this was the spatial distribution of these business categories. And from the data, we can see that food and beverage services were the majority of the like business categories were like food and beverage services, and after that, health and personal care. So this is just a methodological flowchart. For first of all, we calculated the recovery index, and after that, we identified potential drivers. And for potential drivers, we considered demographic data, weather data, and we also considered spatial spillover data. And we'll go over that, like how we calculated that. And after that, we just did the causal analysis for recovery. And this is how we calculated the recovery index. So the duration of disruption was calculated, so in days. So it was basically the time it takes for businesses to resume normal operations after the storm. So if you look at the conceptual framework here, so we had data, we divided the data into 3 parts during Winter Storm Uri, before 5 weeks before Winter Storm Uri, and 5 years and 5 weeks after Winter Storm Uri. So we set the baseline as mean. If you look at the equation there, so the mean before 5 weeks before Winter Storm Uri was set as the baseline, and the variance for across all categories were maximum 20%. So that is why we considered time required for businesses to regain at least 80% of their pre-storm customer base. So that is how we calculated the duration, like how long the business was disrupted. And we also considered a variable which is like the spatial spillover. We had variables like housing characteristics, demographic characteristics. Other than that, we also considered one spatial variable. So the variable we considered here was calculated. We took buffer from like each of the businesses. The buffer was set as 1 kilometer, and inside that particular buffer, we tried to see like how many businesses were open or closed nearby. So we used for calculating the weights, we used a decay function there. So which was the distance based decay, and this was basically the inverse distance weighting method. And based on how many businesses were open or closed, we got a score for each of the businesses that we had for our study. And that was the basically the special spillover variable. And the value was from 0 to 1. So if all the neighbors were open, the value was 1. And if all the neighbors were closed, the value was 0. And this is how we identified the business size. As you see, there were some scale issues for this data. So we normalized the value. And after that, based on the like average visit counts, we considered small sized businesses where we got like less than 100 visits for the business in consideration, and for medium size like 100 to 500 visitation counts, and for large size businesses greater than 500 counts. So this reference was taken from the study by Yabe et al. 2020. And we removed PYs where the average visit counts were less than 10, and we had total PYs in our study was 10,971. So these are some of the like EDA and analysis, and we found that small size businesses were greater in number, and majority of the PYs are were in Harris counties. So these are some plots. So we can see that average visit counts before, during, and after disaster by county, by business type, and by business size. So all of them had a significant difference, and we performed a Shapiro-Wilk normality test for that one, and for all groups, it was not normal. So that is why we came up with the Wilcoxon sign rank test, and we found that like all of the differences here were significant. So this was the distribution of the recovery time. So we can see that like most of the businesses recovered within 10 days, 10 to 11 days. Yeah, and there were some businesses which went over that. The maximum like recovery duration we found was 52 days. And this was the maximum drop from the pre-storm average count. So we can see that more than or near 5,000 businesses were completely disrupted. So the percent drop was 100% for those. And these are some of the plots that the recovery time across business groups, county, and business size. So we can see that the essential goods and services, which are mostly the grocery and supermarkets, health and personal care. So these essential goods and services recovered faster than the non-essential ones. And the Chambers, Montgomery, Harris, and Fort Bend counties have longer right tails. So you can see that indicating sub businesses took over 50 days to recover for those particular counties. And Liberty, Austin, and Waller counties show tighter distribution, suggesting faster and more uniform recovery. And larger businesses recovered comparatively more slowly. And these were some like point was impact by business size. So again, we can see from the graph, like the essential services are less impacted since they had a lower percent drop compared to others, and large businesses faced challenges of managing larger, possibly less flexible operations. And this is just a kernel distribution, kernel density map. So you can see that how many businesses were open after 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, and 10 days. And we can see that after 10 days, only 296 businesses were still closed. And the model we used to analyze the causal factors, we used probit regression here since our dependent variable was binary. So it was basically whether it recovered or not. And so there was a little modification of this probit regression. So that is, other than the variables that we considered, we also considered a spatial variable here. So we could go for spatial regressions, but we didn't do that since they are like hard. Sometimes it is difficult to interpret those models. So that is why we came up with one study. They showed like how we can like add a very spatial variable and can linearly like predict that and explain that in a good way. So we followed that method, and so these were the basically findings here. So for our model, we wanted to see like how this recovery changes over time. So if the drivers are also changing with time. So what we did, we constructed like 4 different models for the cumulative cases, like 2 days after the storm, 5 days after the storm, 7 days after the storm, and 10 days after the storm. And we considered 2 days and 5 days as earlier recovery period, 7 days and 10 days at delayed recovery period. And for we also did some non-cumulative cases as well. So these are the shared findings since it is not visible from the table clearly. So this is the share findings from all of the models. And for earlier recovery, if you look at the plot, you can see that which were the which variables were affecting the recovery negatively and which were affecting positively for recovery early and delayed. So we can see that the non-white household below poverty line and non-family household, they were negative drivers. So they basically reflected social vulnerability for the earlier recovery period. And higher housing vacancy rates also show delayed recovery, which basically shows urban decline or lower demand. And we can see that communities with higher school enrollment showed a positive effect, which signals functioning communities. And also we can see that power outage temperature showed negative effects. And small and medium-sized businesses recovered comparatively faster. Mostly they were owner-operated, so they were independent and rapidly decisions could be taken. For supermarkets, health, specialty food sectors, so faster recovery were noticed due to these are essential services, so they recovered comparatively faster compared to the non-essential services. And we could find a strong spatial spillover effect, like which basically represents recovery propagates locally. So recovery in one area basically boosts the surrounding area's recovery. And for the delayed recovery, from all of the models, we had these share findings, like vacant housing, non-family households still remains a barrier. So school enrollment, which was previously a positive driver, so it came up as a negative driver for the delayed recovery period. So that was basically from the prolonged closure. Like we found some studies where they mentioned about increased childcare cost, no free supervision since schools were closed, and no free subsidized food. Sometimes it limits parents' ability to work, so limited income, limited local demand. We can give it a causation based on those studies like this. And population density here becomes a positive driver. So it wasn't significant for earlier days because of the power grid failure and uniform mobility constraints like across geographies. So once the basic system stabilizes, the demand increases due to a higher foot traffic. And medium and small size businesses maintained resilience here as well. Essential sectors recover consistently faster. Disaster stressors like temperature outage, so these were like not significant by date end. So it is because environmental constraints dominate in earlier stages but lose relevance as adaptive capacity kicks in. So that was our findings. And spatial effects was also significant here, but the magnitude was weaker. So business attributes dominates and decisions were like more internal. So these are some of the like conclusion, like what our study could do or can do. So providing targeting supports to vulnerable sectors for improving business recovery after disasters, and data-driven policymaking this like helps allocate resources where they are mostly needed, enhancing community resilience through equitable recovery efforts, and guiding firms in building more robust continuity planning based on the recovery timelines and factors. Yeah, so that was all that I had present.
Thank you, Parag.